Uh, yeah, man. You know what? I am the worst. I'm the worst at flyers and all that, man. I had that. I had the advertisement for
Oh yeah, they're gonna be
November.
watching us
November.
next month. Yeah. I saw that.
I didn't even catch it until somebody was like, "Hey, bro, is it gonna be on this month or next month?" And I
I
was like,
definitely peeped
"Oh man,
that. I definitely peeped that.
yeah." So I messed that up. Then we started later. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is, though. It is what it is, though.
We'll be all right.
Man, are we gonna get into it? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We gonna get into it. We got something to talk about.
Oh, before we do, let me hold on. Let me do something
Frank,
real
hold
quick.
up, Frankie Cuzzo. You know what I'm saying? Frankie
Yeah.
Cuzzo. You know me and Frankie, man. We was gonna do a podcast called the Johnny Cuzzo Show.
I just feel the need. I need to sit that right there real quick, just so everybody can see that in the background, so it looks nice and strong.
So we make
You know what
sure
I
y'all
mean?
understand what's happening right now. This is
What's
called
happening?
Pride. Pride comes before the fall.
Oh
So so
I'm. You know, this is.
I doing tougher then. No, I know y'all doing y'all thing. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
man.
saying?
Listen, you had a rough week, brother. You
Hey,
had a.
bro, we've had a rough season. I mean,
Oof.
I told you, what I tell you from the jump, though? I said, I do not want Carson Wentz. I said,
Yeah,
man, I wasn't excited, fam. I wasn't excited.
he's definitely hit or miss, and he's missing right now for sure.
Fam, that Bama is missing layups. So it's
Yeah,
like,
he's
man,
missing. He's Ben Simmons out here. Word up. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's what's
Woo.
up,
So
man. You know
Frankie
what I'm
Cuzzo,
saying?
that was. But so is Frankie still around?
Yeah, he's doing his thing, man. You know, making some tostones. Y'all don't know about that right there. When we back to
And
the grill
losing
again.
weight.
Yeah. Looking
Yeah,
good,
he looked
man.
good. He looked good.
You looking good, fly color Asians, ghettos. You know the whole run. Y'all want me breaking to that Wu Tang right there. You know what I'm
Hey.
saying? Ladies and gentlemen, we back to the grill again. The grill again.
Yes,
Back to the grill
yes.
again. So let me tell you what's going on. We having some technical difficulties. My computer crashed, like my iMac. So I am recording this from my iPad and typical stuff. So we gonna make it work though. We gonna make this work. But
We make
we
it
got
clap.
yeah, we gonna make it work. That's in response to the BET Hip Hop Awards that was on, right? We
Hey.
gonna make it. Ladies and gentlemen, season 5, episode 3. Man, we
Yes.
apologize. We had 2 crazy weeks coming in, and then we took 2 weeks off. That's not what we're gonna do. We back at it. We're gonna do our thing. Here we are. We're gonna do that thing. But so real
That is
quick though,
not the norm.
it's not. But season 5 is live. You know what I'm saying? So Strap, where we been, man? What's been going on?
Well, I mean, I was what if we the week prior there was some lack of communication on both ends, I think, especially on
Yeah.
my part as far as Thursday, but then you wasn't feeling well, so that pushed us
Right.
off. And then I had a wedding I had to be at in Staten Island. You know,
Shaolin.
actually, yeah, my sister, I mean my sister. Yeah, she is my sister actually. She's a believer. So, but my wife's cousin got married over there in I forget what the name of the place is. I know you could see the Verrazano bridge right from where we was at.
Arizona.
That
Yeah,
joint,
that's dope.
the Verrazano bridge, that joint was hard, man. It was.
I
I'm looking
bet. I
at that like,
bet.
yo, this is ill right here, being here just chilling.
Right.
So we was in New York, man. We was, celebrating a wedding that really big up Christ. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
the husband to be, as he was giving his vows, was big up in Christ and what Christ has done in his life. And it was just dope, man, to really celebrate too. They came together after years of being single, being faithful to the Lord in their
Well,
churches.
that's what's up.
Yeah, and they was a little older, up there in age, and they was in their 30s. You know what I'm saying? And then
Oh,
coming
that's what's
together,
up.
yeah, coming together, it was dope, man. So we
Yeah.
celebrated that and rode bike through Central Park and just chilled, man. Just I've been grinding, doing the artwork heavy. I was
Right.
working on some coloring pages for the same hospital that I did that big piece
Oh,
for.
whoa, that's what's up. Okay, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
they had me to do some, like, they're trying to bring culture. They're trying to expose their patients to other cultures, other ethnicities. So they giving the opportunity to different artists to be able to bring that to the forefront in different ways, creatively. So one of the avenues was through coloring pages that they can give their patients when they come into the hospital. So two of the designs I did was actually two blocks right here in Lank that kind of showed. I called it a life or a lank life. You know what I mean, down at the bottom.
That's
So it just
dope.
kind of shows life and lank. Yeah, it's cool, man. I think it'll be a dope little project. But yeah, the Lord has been blessing me with dope opportunities, so I'm just continuing to push on, man. Doing what we do.
Yeah, that's what's up. The roast was good, baby.
What up, brother?
Black Calvinist, the EBT Hip Hop Awards. You know
The
how he get
throwback.
down. You know, it's the
EBT hip hop.
EBT joints. You know what I'm saying? That's what's up, man. Yeah, man. We here, we back, man. We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
So we gonna jump right in, man. We gonna jump in
let's do it.
to this new joint,
But
White Lives
you're not
Matter.
gonna tell them where you was at though.
Who, me?
Yeah, you're not gonna tell them where you was at. What was going on with Kurt?
Oh, they don't care about that, man. They care about
They only care
the
about me.
Wolverine, man.
Get
You know what I'm
out of
saying?
here,
They
man.
care about the Wolverine, man. We'll get back to that. Let's get into this, man. I've been
Let's do it.
eager
Let's do it. Let's do
to
it.
talk through this, man. So we got all right. So on a couple days ago at Kanye West, who now goes by Yeezy, at a fashion event in Paris, he wore a White Lives Matter shirt, and
He need to
Candace
be Yeezy.
Owens, yeah, right, and Candace Owens actually tweeted that shirt, the White Lives Matter, a picture of him and her wearing it. I think hers was white with black letters, his was black with white letters, and so forth. All right. So that has caused a significant backlash, right? So a
Yeah.
media frenzy for a White Lives Matter t-shirt. All right. So we want to talk through that. We're going to talk about Jeffrey Dahmer, his series, and how does this all connect? How does Candace Owens, Kanye West, and Jeffrey Dahmer all connect? Well, ladies and gentlemen, cross-examiners, we
That's
getting
right.
ready to
That's
jump
right.
into it.
Welcome to Cross Examine.
All right, so here's the media frenzy. So first you have Ahmaud Arbery. His mom responds through her lawyer. And if you don't remember who he is, Ahmaud Arbery was a black man down in Mississippi who was shot and killed by two white men, a father and a son, in a truck. And there was another guy driving who was recording it with his phone who eventually gave that footage over. Now, I'm just going to say this just for context because we're mentioning Candace Owens. Candace Owens did a rant basically saying, wait for the facts, that Ahmaud Arbery was a criminal, that she had some kind of evidence that he was really breaking into a home and running from it. And that obviously proved not to be true. You know, I don't remember Candace Owens recanting those statements,
Right.
but that was it. All right. So you got okay. So that happened. So Ahmaud Arbery's mom responds. Wanda Cooper Jones. So let me read you this. Wanda Cooper Jones tells Rolling Stone in a statement that West's actions flies directly in the face of what he had expressed to her family after her 25-year-old son was killed when he went for a jog in Georgia. I said Mississippi, it was Georgia. I'm tripping. All right. And three white neighbors chased him down and shot him in February 2020. All right. In a statement given through her attorney, Lee Merritt, Cooper Jones expressed her extreme disappointment in West for slapping the phrase White Lives Matter on clothing from his latest Yeezy collection and doubling down on his stance on Tuesday. As a result of his display, White Lives Matter started trending in the U.S., which would direct support and legitimize extremist behavior, much like the behavior that took the life of her son, Cooper Jones, relayed through Merritt, which is her lawyer. That is the first thing that Wanda and families like hers continue to fight against. All right. So you got Ahmaud Arbery's mom saying, this is a complete contradiction from what you said to me. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Kanye West donated $1 million to either a foundation or gave Ahmaud Arbery his money. All right. So that happens. And then you have media backlash from Diddy. This is Diddy. Good old Diddy, right? So Diddy, let me read the article. Kanye West supporters have stood with the rapper through near constant storms of controversy and problematic behavior, from relentless taunting of his ex-wife to calling slavery a choice and everything in between. Let's not forget George Bush doesn't like black people, right? All right. Needless to say, they've learned how to pick their battles. But after he debuted a long-sleeved White Lives Matter shirt during a showcase for his new Yeezy line at the Yeezy SZN9 presentation in Paris, his friends in the fashion world have sided against him. Now, even Sean Diddy Combs has decided this is a fight he's willing to speak up about because it goes far beyond fashion. So here's Diddy's perspective. I am not about to be addressing every last thing that's going on in the world on the internet. Good, Diddy, because we really don't care what you
Yeah,
think.
for real. Good.
Well, what does Diddy think about this? Man, get out of here, man.
Yeah,
Stop
right.
dating dudes. Stop dating dudes under your son's age. Stop dating girls
Girl, I
under
was
your
about to
son's
say. I
age.
mean, listen. Some have said
But
that,
but
but
but but then again, you know what I'm saying.
Ah,
I don't want to get I don't want to get
sheesh.
demonetized. You know what I'm
Right,
saying.
right, right.
Let's keep it going. All right. So
Wow.
he says, Diddy said that I've always been there and will always support my brother Kanye as a free thinker. But the White Lives Matter T-shirt, I don't rock with it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not with it. All right. Then you had some fashion world icons who said, "You're just talking to Kanye West. You're just an insecure narcissist that's dying for validation from the fashion world." And this is by Tremaine Emery, who's a supreme creative director. All right. So, my brother, let's get into this reality. First, I want to read, I just want to just general thoughts on this, and then we're going to get into what Candace Owens said, and then some things. All right. So, just initial thoughts. Hold on. Before you say that, I need to say this. Here's what Kanye West said about it. Everyone knows that Black Lives Matter was a scam, he declared, seemingly referencing the group's multiple $1 million scandals. Now it's over. You're welcome. The Chicago born rapper was addressing the controversy that began after he donned a t shirt emblazoned with White Lives Matter while staging a surprise Yeezy fashion show that showcased his Season 9 clothing line. Various models, including Lauryn Hill's 23-year-old daughter, Celia Marley, also hit the runway in shirts bearing the slogan, which was created by white supremacists, the slogan, in response to the Black Lives Matter movement. It has since been labeled a hate slogan by the Anti-Defamation League. All right. So, my brother, just some initial thoughts before we get into Candace Owens and what she was saying and all this stuff.
So my initial thought was, here we go again. Obviously, that's you see Kanye do something like that, and then he's standing next to Candace Owens. I mean, anything he's doing next to Candace Owens is going to cause that kind of controversy.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought immediately. Then I saw the slogan. Obviously, I'm thinking, come on, man, like why? What
Yeah.
what is the point? Immediately you start thinking, what is going on here? Like, why? You know what I'm saying? But there's just so many
Mm-hmm.
things that have come out of it since then. Like even
Yeah.
who designed the shirt and whose was it and who just all the nonsense behind the whole thing to even get him to the point of saying what he said as far as backing out and the politics and all that craziness. Like it's just a whirlwind, man. Like you
Yeah.
wonder, like I know this dude has so much good to offer to
Mm-hmm.
society. I really believe that. You know what I mean? I think anytime you give somebody who could be like, you can still see some regular dude in him. You know what I'm saying? Like when he
Yeah.
talks, like you still see that regular dude in him. Anytime you give somebody that's regular that kind of money, like good can come out of it because their ideas are not going to be bound by what society deems as has to happen and all these.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to break boundaries and do new things. So I think it's good. But man, like it's almost like Trump. Like you want to muzzle him sometimes. You know what I'm saying? You want to just
Mm-hmm.
hold him down. Like, yo, be quiet. Like it's just worse because he feels like he's one of us. You know what I'm saying? Like Trump ain't one of
Right.
us. Like Trump don't come from
Right.
what we come from. Like
Nah, it
so
doesn't.
yeah, it's a wild ride, man. Put it that way. The Kanye ride is wild.
Yeah, it is. Especially when he said he was a Christian a couple years ago.
And he keeps
And so
saying
much
it.
of
I mean, he keeps
yeah, yeah,
professing Christ.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And not that it's wrong to wear a White Lives Matter shirt if you profess Christ. We're not
Right. Yeah, we're
legalistic
not
in that
saying that
way.
at all. It's just
All right,
it's just outlandish kind of. It's kind of wild. I
yeah.
mean,
So I'll say this quickly, and then I want to read sort of what Candace Owens said. All right. My initial response is that like Kanye is not doing this. I'm gonna unpack what I mean later when I say this. But this was not this was a political statement. This wasn't about Black Lives Matter, right? This was not about Black Lives Matter and him saying, "Oh, they were fraudulent, so you thank you. Now it's over." That's not what this was about at all. I think at all for Kanye West, and I think that Kanye West is one who takes pride in inciting the world on some level. You know, this is the guy who's like, it's hard to be humble when you stunting on the jumbotron, right? So
right.
I think he takes pride in knowing I can do something that will have reverberating consequences in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can affect the world and make everything be about me, right? So classic. So this is a selfish ambition move on Kanye West part. This is not really about Black Lives Matter, which is indicative of Ahmaud Arbery's mom saying, "You told me the opposite." Since then, right? And I'll come back to this in a minute. I want to prove why I'm saying that this is that in a minute. All right. Let's go to what Candace Owens had to say about it. Classic Candace Owens.
Before you go there though, I mean,
Yeah.
did he had a shirt that was about to drop in honor of Kanye? You know what I'm saying? Like a
Yeah.
T-shirt,
Yeah.
like because he's trying to get back into the whole design game. So this it was a
Diddy
he was a
is.
yeah Diddy
Yeah.
is he's trying to get really heavy back into the clothing design because he's the back in the day he was the prominent black figure in the design world. I mean, as far as
Yeah.
clothing was concerned, whatever he did, I forget what was his joint called.
Sean John.
Sean John, yeah, that's what it was. So anyway, he had a shirt about to drop in honor of Kanye. Like it's a Kanye thing or something like that about, and my man pulled the plug on the shirt. But he didn't say he's not going to do it. He just said not right now. You know what I'm saying? So dudes ain't ready to give up on him yet because Kanye thinks differently. And I think people understand that he thinks differently. So cats, some would say, the people are making excuses, but I think people who are close to him understand that there's a different way that this guy functions and thinks, you know what I'm saying? And even
Right.
talks
Yeah.
about stuff. So even with this shirt, I think it means more than what we think it means. You know what I'm saying? Like in his mind, like
Yeah.
he's just bugged out. You know what I'm saying? In his
Yeah.
world,
Right.
he don't want boundaries. He don't want you to say that white lives matter means this because he wants to say whatever it means. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like he's just
Yep.
weird like that. That's
Yeah,
my
I can see
observation.
that. No, I can see that, and we're gonna come back to that a little bit. I can see that, and we're gonna come back because there's a dynamic here with Candace and Kanye that I think is
Right.
important for us to kind of pull out to put what's happening today in some kind of context, right?
Got you.
So here's what Candace Owens said in response. So conservative commentator Candace Owens clapped back at critics who ripped her and Kanye Ye West for wearing White Lives Matter shirts and even brought music star Lizzo into her lecture. Owens, during part of her Daily Wire podcast, defended her and West's outfit choice during Paris Fashion Week as she argued Black Americans should care more about abortion, black on black crime, education standards, and obesity, which is when she tied Lizzo into her rant. You know what we should have done? We should have put a White Lives Matter t-shirt on Lizzo, Owen said. Maybe we could have gotten a lot of attention about obesity and how it's actually killing Black Americans. So that's Candace Owens' response.
She stay putting her foot in the mouth, man. She stay saying some stuff, man.
Oh, man. As a fellow fat boy, I'm not laughing at her statements about Lizzo. Here's what I'm laughing at. I'm laughing at the utter absurdity. And Candace Owens and Kanye West are shock jocks, essentially, right? They're political. Well, Candace Owens, she's a political polarizer, right? It's like, and this is really about just going after the left. And the thing that Candace Owens, even though she does say some things that I even agree with, the problem with Candace Owens is her attitude and temperament is basically let me take on and say all the things that my white friends are afraid to say because they'll get attacked. But let me represent what they say. So let me give you an example from what she said in this statement right here, right? Let me give you an example. When she said, maybe we could have gotten a lot of attention about obesity and how it's actually killing Black Americans, okay? This is classic Candace Owens, all right? Obesity is not a Black issue. That's not a Black community issue. Obesity is an American issue. I mean, if you look at the numbers, there's like 68% of Americans are overweight, and I forgot like the high percentage classify as obese, right? That's not a Black issue. But Candace Owens will take anything and turn it into a Black issue as if Black people are the only ones obese, and because Lizzo is a big Black woman who's an entertainer, that somehow that's indicative of the Black community. That's the problem with Candace Owens and a lot of these things. This is not about the Black community. This is really about Candace Owens continuing to be the lightning rod that pushes back against the Black narrative so that she can gain momentum from that. I mean, let's be clear. Let's just be honest. Candace Owens' husband is white. Kanye West married Kim Kardashian. So of course you know white lives matter. Of course you believe.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a no-brainer. So I think when I hear Candace Owens, it's just classic Candace Owens. Let me go after these things and all of that. So let me say some things real quick about this. I do not think that this was a statement against Black Lives Matter. And let me tell you why. They waited until Black Lives Matter as an organization was exposed as fraudulent to do this. Like, I would have been more impressed if Candace Owens wore a White Lives Matter t-shirt in 2020 when Black Lives Matter was like full tilt. They were everywhere. The world was marching, putting Black Lives Matter on the streets. They didn't put this out there. They waited until Black Lives Matter, the organization, was proven to be fraudulent, and then they waited until the organization is largely dismantled. When Black Lives Matter was in its heyday, they didn't say none of this stuff. There was no, she may have said the phrase, but the t-shirt wasn't there. So this is not really against Black Lives. Now, this is a different statement. This is a much different statement, right?
What was in the front? I mean, did I read somewhere that there was a Pope in the front of the shirt?
Yeah, the Pope, yeah.
What was the significance behind that? Has anything been brought out? I mean, was it tied to the White Lives Matter statement, or I'd be curious to see.
You know what? I think it's what you said. Kanye West is just a wild dude.
Right.
So just throwing the Pope on a t-shirt is just like different, you know?
Yeah, like borderless, the borderless mentality. I mean, I think that was most of his ambition for getting billions, fam, is just to have no borders. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So let's be clear what this was. This was a political statement against the left aimed at anyone who supported the organization. Like what Candace is doing, and even Kanye West now, okay? What they're doing is mocking everyone who supported the organization, right? But there's and that okay, fine, do that if you want to. That's your, what do you say? What do you say? America's a free country, right? So that's what they're doing. They're poking at the Democratic left and anyone who supported the organization, okay? That's what's really happening here. Here's why this is also problematic for me. All right? Problematic for me is that in 2018, here's what Kanye West tweeted. If you remember, in 2018, Kanye West was going back and forth with Candace Owens with the MAGA hat. Remember that?
Right. I remember.
It was when the MAGA hat and she was doing that. So then here's what happens. Kanye West tweets this on October 30th. 2018. Here's what Kanye West tweets. My eyes are now wide open, and now I realize I've been used to spread messages I don't believe in. I am distancing myself from politics and completely focusing on being creative. All right? Here's what the news article said about that statement. And I remember this, and I thought the same
That
thing.
was 2018.
That was 2018. 2018. That was in response to. So what happened was she had made these Blexit T-shirts. She said Kanye West designed them. Kanye West was like, I did not design them. I introduced her to the person who designed them. I didn't design. I had nothing to do with it. So let me read this real quick to prove this. West's message comes amid backlash he's facing over his supposed involvement in the Blexit movement. Blexit, short for Black Exit, encourages African Americans who support the Democratic Party to become Republican. On Twitter, he denied Candace Owens' claim he designed the Blexit shirts, touted at this past weekend's Turning Point USA Young Black Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C. West tweeted he simply introduced Owens to the person who made the logo. Okay? So in 2018, he said, I've been manipulated. He was talking about by Candace. I've been manipulated by Candace Owens. My eyes are wide open. I see what this is. I'm no longer going to spread messages I don't believe in, right? So when Ahmaud Arbery's mom says that is totally different than what you said to my family personally in 2020, I believe her. Because in 2018, Kanye West is saying, I'm not with Candace Owens, and I'm not with this Blexit movement. I'm not with it. I'm being manipulated, and I'm not going for it, right? So here, when these two come together before, he realizes, hey, this woman's using me. I'm not with it. But now, he hasn't been seen with her since then. Now, 4 years later, he shows up with her at his Paris event wearing White Lives Matter t-shirts. What's going on here? Okay. Kanye West does not believe that white lives matter in the same way. And let me give you substantial proof to the claim. Kanye West was threatening Pete Davidson, the white dude who was in a relationship with his ex-wife, Kim Kardashian. He was threatening him publicly to the point where when Kim Kardashian broke up with this dude, Pete Davidson, he's checking into like some treatment center because he has PTSD from Kanye West threats. Pete Davidson is white, a white dude. He was in a relationship with Kanye West earlier this year. So if white lives really matter, why are you threatening Pete Davidson, right?
And listen,
He's white.
I take most people's threats pretty serious. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just a. But when you get threatened by somebody that's worth like $8 billion or however many billions he is, that threat comes with a little bit more weight. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot you can do and get away with when you got that kind of money.
No. So the threat I get with that's not my point about.
No,
how
I'm just
he
saying as far
responded.
as his PTSD. Yeah, I'm
Nah,
just throwing that out there. That was sidebar.
I'll give him that, right? But my point is, if you believe that, then why are you threatening Pete Davidson?
Facts, yeah.
You're threatening his life to the point where, as you said, Strack, he's taking the threat seriously now that he's not with Kim.
Right.
But then you come out a couple months later with White Lives Matter t-shirts. Kanye West does not believe that. Because you threatening a white dude in front of the whole world. You don't believe it. You know what I'm saying? So what's really going on here? What's really happening here? All right. Here's the other problem with this, right? The other problem with White Lives Matter, there's a couple problems with this phrase, right? The first is Kanye West said, this proves that BLM was fraudulent. We know that they were fraudulent. You're welcome. It's over. Good riddance, right? And Candace Owens is supporting that. She was one of the people who I think gives herself credit for exposing the fraudulent elements of Black Lives Matter, the organization. Here's the problem. And I'm calling this selective fraud disorder. All right? Selective fraud disorder. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. This is not a political statement. This is a actual statement, right? Donald Trump has defrauded many people. This dude had a college where people paid money and got nothing from it. In my lifetime, and I could be wrong, there may be someone who's more political than me in this. I've never seen a president have more people in his cabinet literally arrested, some serving jail time for fraudulent activity as his colleague. I've never, even Richard Nixon didn't have as many people getting arrested. Again, this is not a political statement. You can say whatever you want. I'm sorry if you voted for Trump. I'm just being honest. This is not a left pursuit. There's legitimate criminal, fraudulent claims by Donald Trump, the man that Candace Owens and Kanye West promoted heavily in the campaign for him to be president, and then after he became president. So if you're going to be anti-fraud and expose people who are fraud, then why aren't you saying anything about Donald Trump then? Because this isn't about exposing people who are fraudulent. There's a different agenda here. Candace Owens once said that black people are the only race who celebrate the worst of their kind, like rappers and stuff like that. Really? So what about the Wild Wild West? There were hardly any black cowboys that I know of. Billy the Kid, those were white dudes killing people of color and each other with pistols, and it was so celebrated that there were tons of westerns done and still being done to this day. That was a celebration
mobsters.
Of mobsters. I was getting ready to go there, right?
Yeah.
Those are not black people at all, right? You're celebrating, our culture celebrates violence, right?
Yeah.
Mobsters, Wild Wild West, cowboys, right?
And
serial killers. And we ain't even gonna hit that yet. We'll come back to that as we talk about Jeffrey Dahmer, right? So, but then you also have, the Confederacy, right? Technically, Robert E. Lee and all of those people are enemies of America.
Thanks.
And yet, there are 7 holidays, depending on what state you live in the South, that celebrate the Confederacy. There are high schools and Army bases across the country. There are over 1,000 schools in America named after Robert E. Lee, and some of them are in all black neighborhoods. Name a school after a dude that was trying to keep black people enslaved.
Definitely fighting for that. I mean, whether he believed whatever he believed or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was on the side fighting to keep them as slaves. That's a fact.
Yeah, right. Someone said, I don't think him threatening Pete Davidson is the point, though, because you got black people who support BLM threaten black people, yeah? Case in point. But that's a different thing, though. Kanye West is promoting it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to get to black people who support BLM because I think people, well, I'll get to this in a second. I'll get to that in a second. Because I think that's a different issue, my man. I think that's a different issue. Kanye West is making a statement. He's not supporting white people. He's beefing with Reebok now and Adidas because they're trying to steal his stuff. That's a white organization, right? He's got people trying to boycott all this stuff, right? Kanye West's statement is different. But there's nothing but historical realities of non-black people celebrating the most violent, evil men of their culture. Mm-hmm. So why is it only when black people do that? So rap music and gangster rap is all like, oh, look at what, but that all comes from mafia. That's all coming from a culture way before that existed.
Yeah.
Candace Owens and them, and I think rightly so, they called out Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B for their song WAP, right? I get it. Terrible song, all of
Definitely.
that. But you're calling them out, but that's that's derived from the pornography industry. Larry Flint, Hugh Hefner, the pornography industry is 86% white. But you're focusing on this one song of these black women. What's really happening here? Why is it that when black people do something, it's the worst of it, but you celebrate all these other non-black folks, white people, Italians, we get it from them. Jay-Z once said, Scarface the movie did more than Scarface the rapper to me, right? The movie Scarface.
And still is. That
Hollywood.
joint's still trending on Netflix. Still be on the top 10 whenever it's put up there.
Still trending on Netflix, right? So again, my point is that when you're talking about this stuff, this isn't really about what they're making it seem like it's about. Candace Owens she only cares about it's fraudulent from a political standpoint, and obviously she has to serve her constituency. Kanye West wants the attention, I think, to because all eyes are not on him right now. It was on him for a while as he was ranting about Pete Davidson and Kim Kardashian, and then it's cooled off, and then he just out of the blue, he always does this. He shows up on something else there, right? So let me bring up the point that this brother made about I don't think it's black people. This is what you have to understand, and this is not a political statement. I'm trying to be as honest as I can about human nature and sort of the way people see things. So let me just say this for the record. I did not support Black Lives Matter, the organization. I am not a Democrat. I think the Democrats have been shucking and jiving black people for a long time. I'm not on the left. I don't trust them at all, but I also don't care or trust the right either, right? So I am not in any way, shape, or form a supporter. We even had in season 3 my buddy Abraham Hamilton, who came on this show and played clips of Patrisse Cullors and other members of Black Lives Matter saying that they're into witchcraft. So just as a believer, I can't support you when you're supporting African spirituality that's rooted in divine beings that are not with Jesus and not about honoring
ancestry.
the Lord.
All that ancestry stuff. Yeah.
All of that. So let me just make that clear for the people who are ready to jump down my throat for what I'm about to say. Okay? For many black people and even white people, there's a difference between Black Lives Matter, the hashtag connected to the organization, and Black Lives Matter, the sentiment. Okay? So let me break down this difference. I'm sure you've heard this before. Let me break down the difference. Didn't support the organization. Once I found out about this stuff, wouldn't even put the hashtag out. But the sentiment comes out of not superiority and not out of contention, but out of concern, right? There is a concern that even despite all the progress that we've made from the Civil Rights Act, there are black people are still treated with a level of suspicion, disdain. There is a pathology that black people are the ones prone to violence and criminality, that it's all us. You would get the impression that black people are the ones who are the most poor, on welfare, on WIC and EBT, all of these things, right? You'll hear Candace Owens and all these people say stuff like black people are 13% of the population, but commit 52% of the murders. But when you break down the numbers, it's basically 0.00000012874% of black people committed a murder last year, right? There were 5,200 and something murders, and black people are 43 million people. But they'll present it like black. So there is a way that things are communicated, a suspicion, a prolonged, somewhat disdain. If you are not an entertainer to some degree, if you can't sing, rap, dance, play ball, then to some degree, for some people, it's harder to get across. Has there been progress? 100%. And if there's anyone black that acts like this is still the civil rights, you are a fool, fam. But there's a difference between the laws have passed and there's still the attitude towards black people can still exist. This is why LeBron James, at the night before, May 31st, 2017, the night before game one of the NBA Finals against the Golden State Warriors, someone spray paints nigger on his garage door, on his house. Right? It became a national story. So you can be a billionaire, be a relatively upstanding citizen, good basketball player, athlete, family man, and they still do that, right? Now you could just say, well, that's just sending everybody to, but that's just different. That word and all of that means everyone knows that that's a real serious thing when that's used. That's probably the most offensive word in the English language. Probably. I mean, and that's across the world. Everyone knows it. So here you have this reality. Like, there are people, and I would be partly one of them, who do see a distinction between the way black people can be treated and the way white people. I'm not saying that black people can't attain or make the same opportunities, but there is a different fight. There's a distinction. There's a difference. And it's been proven in so many ways. So when people So Black Lives Matter, the reason why it blew up, here's what people don't stop to ask. Why did the organization take off? You mean to tell me all the people that were marching all over the world were Marxist? I didn't see, go back and look online and look at Black Lives Matter marches and count how many Karl Marx signs you see. You won't find hardly any. In fact, in the movie Uncle Tom 2, they spent a good deal of time critiquing Marxism and talking about its impact in the world. But all the footage they showed was all old school black and white with like Stalin and Lenin, all these dudes. They weren't showing no 2020 marching down the street because no one cared about Karl Marx. People weren't reacting to socialism. That was a political term given to try to define what's happening. People were reacting to the sentiment that we know that black people, as it relates to the way they're treated by the surrounding culture, can be treated more harshly or differently. Some of you are watching, maybe old enough to remember Rodney King. That man was beaten brutally by 4 police officers.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
And they all got acquitted.
Yep.
All got acquitted. And then there were riots in California, right?
Yep.
So there's been a frustration. So it's not that black people haven't made progress. It's not that nothing has changed. 100%. There's definitely improvement. But when you think of what the American dream represents, and then you think of how long you stopped people, just because of their black, from attaining that American dream, you daggone right there are going to be people who are offended. So you're going to have some people who are more like Frederick Douglass, who say, hey, Martin Luther King, let's use what they wrote in the Constitution against them and fight for that, right? But then you're going to have, because we're not monolithic, right? You're going to have black people who are offended that you have to fight for that stuff. And then after all we've been through that, so there's a mix of a lot of it. So people, black and white, and all who supported Black Lives Matter did not largely support them because they love Karl Marx or they're trying to be a socialist nation. I'm not saying no one supported them for that. I'm saying that's not the primary reason. People, after seeing George Floyd die, there were white people that I know of that said, man, I just want to apologize. And I said, for what? They were like, well, I've often just believed every story, like he deserved it. He didn't listen to all this stuff. And when I watched that video, I realized, wow, that guy didn't have to die, right? There was a sentiment happening. Now, I don't get me wrong. I didn't support the movement of Black Lives Matter. And I'm glad they got exposed as frauds. All these people are frauds to me. I'm glad that happened. But I understand the sentiment, not the hashtag or the organization. What Candace Owens is doing is essentially, and Kanye in his own way, are equating the organization with the sentiment. And that's what people are pushing back against. No one is like, man, Patrice Cullors and them. No one. And then there's also, well, hey, you support other people who have done fraudulent things. Why is her fraud greater than Donald Trump's? You have no recourse to dismiss him.
Right. So what are we really talking about?
It's selective fraud disorder.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're selective in who you think is fraudulent and is not worthy of mockery. You have not done a detailed report on Donald Trump or anybody else. So it's not even real, right? So
Right.
when we're looking at this stuff, we have to also, especially if you're a believer, you have to be discerning and realize what's really going on here.
Yeah.
This was actually cowardly, not courageous to me. My personal opinion.
Yeah.
Because if it were courageous, you'd have jumped out there before Black Lives Matter as an organization got exposed. And let me tell
Yeah. I
you
mean,
why I know this. Let
go
me say
ahead.
one more thing and then you jump in. One more thing. Let me tell you why I'm saying it's cowardly, not courageous. In 2020, I think it was 2020, Candace Owens was hosting, before she went with the Daily Wire, she was hosting her own like YouTube, she had a YouTube channel, and she had on Hawk Nelson, who at that time was the Black Lives Matter kind of representative of New York City. And I'll be honest, that was the first time I watched someone be time enough for Candace Owens. And he pushed back, he challenged her with the Brexit thing, and he got her to say, he made her recognize the Republicans don't care about black people. They don't want the black vote. And so she was like, well, I'm not trying to get people to vote Republican. I just don't think they should go Democrat. But then Brexit, but if you hear her talk of those turning point things, it's all about voting conservative. Then after that interview, you can go to YouTube and Google this. Candace Owens, Hawk Nelson, I think that's his name, was the Black Lives Matter. It was a great interview. I thought it was a great conversation. But he put Candace Owens in it. It was the first time I really seen someone kind of put her on her heels because he exposed her. Okay, so then that same year, a documentary Uncle Tom comes out. Okay, Uncle Tom was a documentary. We covered this in season 3. It's a documentary by black conservatives who say that black people, they're called Uncle Toms because they don't fit the narrative. They would rather vote conservative instead of Democrat, Republican. And so there's all these different black, powerful, very known. Candace was in it. Larry Elder is one of the main. He directed it, and Alan West. I mean, there was a lot of black, very well-known conservative people in this documentary. All right, but at the 1 hour, 28 minutes and 40 seconds, at that mark in this documentary, for 3 minutes and 50 seconds, all right, most of those conservatives that were bashing people for saying that they're Uncle Toms because they vote Democrat. I'm telling you, go to Uncle Tom and go to about 1 hour, 28 minutes and around 40 seconds. For 3 minutes and 50 seconds, all of those black conservatives, they all said Republicans do not want the black vote. Carol Swain said, when I ran for office, I had my Republicans. She said, I thought I would get support because I'm black running as a conservative in a black district. And she said, and I'm paraphrasing, she was like, they said, why are you doing that? Don't waste time there. Go where the money is. She said she got no support for her campaign. All of them, Larry Elder, Carol Swain, Alan West, in that 3 minute and 50-second portion said the Republicans don't market to black people. They don't want the black vote. They've written black people off as going Democrat. All of it. That's what they said. So here's my question. Then why are you doing a documentary, and to this day, shaming black people for voting Democrat when you, a black Republican, are saying Republicans don't want black people there? So you want black people to vote for people who don't care about them. At least the Democrats lie and pretend like they care about black people. That is fascinating to me. So to this day, Candace Owens will shame black people for voting Democrat. She'll make it sound political, oh, abortion and this and that. But the reality is, you said that. I'm telling you, go watch Uncle Tom Part 1. 1 hour, 28 minutes, for 3 minutes. I was like, wow. I was shocked they put that in there. I was like, this whole 4-minute segment undermines their whole point. I'm not going, that's like telling me, hey man, these people don't like you. They don't care about you. But man, go spend time with them. Go give them things like your money and your. It's fascinating to me. So again, when I say that this is not courageous, it's cowardly. It's contentious. This is not about conviction. This is about contention for both of them. This is about contention. Candace Owens just wants to be contentious because she even knows, and Hulk Nelson even exposed, Republicans don't care about the black vote. So why are you shaming people for voting Republican? They don't care about our vote. That's what I don't get. I don't understand that. So when I see this, this is not courageous. This is cowardly. You waited till Black Lives Matter was decimated and exposed, and then you show up and do this. And lastly, and then you have the floor strike. Lastly, this phrase, the sentiment Black Lives Matter, more comes from, hey, we recognize and we believe that black people's lives aren't seen as necessary as other people's lives. So Black Lives Matter wasn't an arrogant statement that said only Black Lives Matter. It was a downtrodden statement to sentiment to say we don't feel like we matter to those people. So we say, oh, what about black on black crime? What about white on white crime? That's not the point. We didn't say that all black. It's when you're in law, when you're law enforcement or in these positions. It's about being valued. You know, you're supposed to protect and serve. How many law enforcement precincts have been sued and threatened by the DOJ for their unfair treatment? This is all, you can Google all this stuff. This is all their treatment of black communities. So when black people say Black Lives Matter, it's a plea for help almost. There's never been a time where white people have been so oppressed by, if they have, it's by other white people for real, to need to say white lives matter. That's a statement of contention and rubbing it in your face. It's not a statement out of necessity or depletion. A statement, and let me tell you, and I can say, I don't know this, but I don't think Patrice Cullors and them sat down and thought, all right, look, we're gonna start this hashtag, and then we're gonna make this move and make millions of dollars and defraud people. Nah, they were genuinely initially affected by what they perceived to be an unequal treatment of the black community. And so they did this. And then when power corrupts, right? Money corrupts. All of a sudden you get money and then you start making decisions. And then next thing you know, I don't know what these ladies' initial intent was, but a lot of black people who I still believe the sentiment is true. While I didn't support the organization, and I'm glad I didn't, and I'm glad they were exposed, that sentiment is a reality. It's a reality. So again, there's never been a need for white people to feel like, now there are poor white people in Appalachia and stuff like that. That's real. But there's never been a need. White people have never been oppressed, never been affected, never been enslaved to the degree that black people have or indigenous people have to acknowledge, hey, we matter too. Regardless of what you think of the organization, the sentiment was saying something. White Lives Matter is not saying what Black Lives Matter was saying. Don't get it twisted. Now, you don't have to agree. You don't have to. This isn't a political statement. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not on the left. I can't stand the left. But I don't bang with the right either. I don't trust them because they don't even want me around. So I'm not there. So anyway, all that to say, this is a theological, not a theological issue. My bad,
Yeah.
bro.
No, it's cool, man. I mean, I would just ask, what does the statement answer? I mean, is there a question? Is there something that was done? What does it answer? I don't think that statement answers anything. But if a black person stands up and says, my life matters, you can think of a lot of things that are being answered there, or at least being responded to throughout history.
Yeah.
So you can say this sounds like an answer to the fact that blacks were considered partially human. This sounds like a response to, what people have suffered and what people have dealt with and read, and you can read about in history. So this is not like some manufactured thing that was just thought up. White people have never been considered to be only a fraction of humanity unless they had, disabilities and such, or they were in the womb,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So here we are. I mean, that's what we're dealing with, which I think it actually helps us transition into what we're talking about with
Yeah.
Dahmer, because when you talk about the value of a person, of a human being, you know, not
Mm-hmm.
and you move on to taking life, you know, what gives a human being value? You know, what is
Mm.
it? Is it their ethnicity? Is it their skin color? How much melanin they have, or lack thereof? What gives a human being value is what we have to discuss when we talk about someone like Jeffrey Dahmer, or white lives matter versus black lives matter, or just
Yeah.
saying both statements. What gives a human being value?
Yeah.
And that's what we have to answer. And I think when we talk about Dahmer and his perspective, you know, going into things, you know, with the way he viewed the world from an evolutionary standpoint, he didn't have a value for life. He didn't know
Right.
where do I grab value for life with that type of worldview, aside from just a selfish, you know, selfish driven aspect,
Yeah.
you know.
Now,
So
Strike, before
anyway,
you go forward, let me say one thing so people understand why Dahmer is a part of this conversation.
of course, go ahead.
So Netflix has recently released I think it's an 8 episode series. It's the number one trending series in America,
Has been for a little while
uh,
now, at least over a week, I
and,
think.
and, and It's about Jeffrey Dahmer. Okay, and so um, there's a connection here to Dahmer that we're going to share in just a moment. This is why we're talking about it. But the reason why he's come up in this conversation, he's trending because of the Netflix episode series. And that's why we're talking about Jeffrey Dahmer. All right.
Yeah,
So, Shrek, you were talking about the value of life and the evolutionary perspective that he had. Keep going with it.
yeah. So basically, when I look at the Dahmer situation, and I hear some of his interviews and some of the ways he talked about his transition, you know, and as far as his worldview is concerned, towards the end of his life, he professed to be a believer. He was actually baptized and discipled for some time. So when we deal with what he did, it's not hard to speculate based upon the majority of his victims as to how society affected his view of humanity and the value of humanity based on what spectrum, right? And I think spectrum's a good word because it's a color word, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
when
It's a
you're
great word,
dealing,
actually.
yeah, it's the right word. So I think, you know, if I was to speculate, Dahmer saw society and said, who are the least? You know, you had homosexuals there, you had Hispanics, blacks, Asians, you know, different people of different ethnicities, and that's who was targeted, predominantly black people, I think for the most part, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it
So
was.
yeah, so you have to wonder, why was it so easy for him to go that route? Why did he go that route? You know what? Well, at that time, I mean, homosexuals were that was huge. You couldn't be a homosexual. You know what I'm saying? Like
Wow.
you're talking about the in 1980s, like, you know, anybody coming out and saying they were homo, they were at the cuff. They were in the beginning stages of coming out and saying we want to be here, but they were very much still looked at as taboo, you know, by society for the majority. And of course, so were black people. And so were Hispanics, you know, at that time in the 1980s, even if you will. Yeah, with hip hop on the rise and so many things shifting culturally, there were changes. But just 20 years before, you were drinking out of different sinks. You know,
Right.
so it wasn't very long. You know, I mean, I have a scenario real quick. I went into a place of business and I name dropped, and boom, I was taken to the back, and you know, and dealt with like the illest. You know what I'm saying? Like this scenario was just dope. And I looked over and I told the person with me, I was like, yo, like if I wouldn't have name dropped, I highly doubt we would have got this kind of service, because the
Right.
initial reaction when I walked in was different. It wasn't it wasn't the same reaction till after I name dropped. You know what I'm saying? And the name
Right.
drop was a different kind of last name than mine. You know what I'm saying? You get the picture.
Right. Right.
I'm being discreet for reasons, but anyway, that's a reality. We still see it. We still deal with it, and I think when we talk about Dahmer, you have to deal with, why were these people, and the effect that society has on how you view things. Even Dahmer himself, as we
Mm-hmm.
transition now, where he is somewhat of a celebrity, or has been actually for time. I mean, when you think evil people, if you got a top 5 list, a lot of people are going to say Dahmer's in the top 5 list. So that's a big deal. And we are now once again at the forefront discussing what? White Lives Matter shirt and Jeffrey
Right.
Dahmer. These are the main topics. So
Mm-hmm.
society is elevating a serial killer for discussion and White Lives Matter sweaters. What do we do with this? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right. Yeah.
it's kind of reflective of where we are as a society. And church,
Yeah.
where do we find ourselves and how do we handle the two? In light of everything that's being brought up for the conversation's sake, especially when you add Dahmer into the mix and someone like Kanye West, two professing believers. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, now we're like, whoa, what? This is a lot of dynamics to have to work through. You know what I'm saying? As Christians.
Yeah, I mean, so let me just say this because it's not speculation. I think Dahmer has acknowledged that in choosing victims, you don't want to get caught. You choose the people that you think society will care the least about.
Right, man.
So choosing, it's not like, look at Dahmer. It's not like he grew up in the hood and was, he chose people that wouldn't go, that no one would care, that he perceived no one would care if they went missing. So in his mind, it's a reflection of it. You know what it was, and again, we're speculating here, right?
For sure. Yeah.
But it's the Amy Cooper syndrome, right?
Mm.
Amy Cooper was the white woman in Central Park who was walking her dog, and another black dude. I forgot his last name. His last name was Cooper as well. But he was like, "Hey, I'm sorry. He was bird watching. Your dog's not supposed to be here." And she was like, "Oh, okay. I'm sorry." Um, oh no, she got offended and
Yeah.
was like, I mean, he was
Because he was
videotaping her.
recording her.
He
Yeah.
was
She's like,
recording. He
stop
said, "I'm
recording
going.
me.
I'm."
Ah.
And she said, "I'm going to call the police and tell them that a black man is attacking me." And he was like, "Go
Right.
ahead."
Right.
And
Right.
so she called and she's pulling, and he's attacking. I mean, she put on a night. But you know what? She said that knowing that black people, that if I do that, you're going to be punished. I'm a white woman calling you, and then she got a lot of backlash for it. But that sentiment is why stuff like the Black Lives Matter slogan took off because people intuitively know Amy Cooper. That was to me, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery became the pillars of the summers. That was the story. Remember, I was telling you, Strack, that's the story that we should be talking about
Yeah.
because that's the pathology
Yeah.
that black people are lesser than, are criminals. And if I call the police and say a black man harassing me as a white woman, they're going to be here quick.
It was
She
a huge
was
red
the
flag. A
it
huge
was
red
a,
flag.
she was the introduction of the Karens.
Yeah.
After her, all the Karens came out. This sentiment that like we're gonna. So again, Jeffrey Dahmer, he precedes Amy Cooper, but the sentiment is the same. I know that black people are not going to be or not. No one's going to be looking for these black folks in the same way if I kill someone white. No one's going to be looking for. So he's getting black people because it can last longer. Then in the document, me and Strack both watched one of those the top 10 things that the documentary got right and wrong. Right? I've watched I think maybe a couple of those, or I read these
Well, I
lists.
mean, just for clarification, it's not a documentary. It's just a show. I don't think it's a
It's a show. It's a
documentary
show.
per
I'm
se.
sorry. It's
Yeah,
not
it's
a
just based
documentary.
on
It's like
based
a
on true events. Yeah.
yeah. It's based on true events. Based on true actual events. So a lot of it they said he got right, but one of the things he got right was that police didn't take him seriously as a threat when the black woman was saying something's going on. They even, in fact, gave a dude, a Latino boy, or I think it was maybe it was
Nah.
Latino. He was like Asian,
Yeah, he was
uh,
Asian. I think he may have been
Asian,
Filipino or something
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
Filipino. Yeah, yeah. It was that look. They gave him. He broke out of the house and was kind of running down the street, and Jeffrey Dahmer was able to convince the police that that was actually his boyfriend, And she was like, no, 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 don't believe him. Check and see how young that boy is.
And he
They
was an
said, that's an
underage kid. Yeah.
underage kid. And they
Yeah.
gave him back to Jeffrey Dahmer, and then he killed him. And then those two officers got suspended afterwards for like 6 months and then were brought back on the force, right? So
Right.
what's the point we're trying to make? The point we're making is that the Jeffrey Dahmer understood that white lives matter and that he was able to play up on that where he could kill these
Right.
black people, use it to his advantage, and
Right.
come off as like, hey, officer, I'm an innocent guy. And they believed him over this woman who kept saying, just check it, look at it, look at it. So again, this is deeper than I get the organization was trash. I wish they never exist. Well, I just hate that they were who they were because Black Lives Matter, the organization, took a real sentiment that not just black people see and feel. And don't get it twisted. Just because there's some black people that don't feel that way doesn't mean that black people don't feel that way. Like we're not monolithic. So there's going to be some black people that don't see that at all. There's going to be plenty of black people who see that.
That's right.
Just because you choose to like the ones who don't see it doesn't mean that's right. You know what I'm saying? There's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of people playing the victim, but not all people are playing the victim, right? But
Yeah, I
this
think.
idea that, go ahead.
I was just gonna say. I think the other big question we have to ask ourselves is, where does our judgment chart come from? Where does our
Yeah,
standard come from? You know, I
100%.
mean, when we deal with this, what do we just fold and say, yes, well, society or culture says this, or the law says this, so yes, this is just the way it's going to be. This is what we're running with. This is how we are now going to treat any given specific people. You know, whether they do something I don't like, or whether they're in a different political party, whatever the case may be. Do we function that way as believers per se? I mean, as Christians, should we function in a way where we allow society to deem who is worthy of our honor and respect?
Wow, that's a question right there.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what we have to ask ourselves. If God says in his word, be watchful, be strong, act like men, do all this in love. You know what I'm saying? Like, do all these things in love.
Right.
How are we supposed to function? I mean, when we consider other people, do we do it based on what that says? Or do we do it based on, well, I mean, they ain't really vote the same way, so more babies is going to die because of their vote. You know what I'm saying? Like, or whatever the case may be, whatever the disagreement may be, how are we judging others? How are we looking at others? What's our standard? By what standard are we looking at other people? And then,
Well, yeah, that's fascinating, bro. Keep going.
well, I was just going to say, for us, it ends up coming to the foot of the cross. And that's where we have to work
Right.
with and walk with. But we can get to that. You go ahead and we can elaborate a little bit more on what we're talking about.
Well, I just think like what you're talking about and this is a drum that me and Strack are going to continue to beat because it's true. But what we're dealing with is the real pandemic in American evangelicalism is the theological gospel instead of the theological one.
Mm-hmm.
So like I did a video about this a couple of days ago, but let me just say this now to make this point. So like when you think about the term Christian nationalism, right? There are people now, evangelicals, owning that term, saying that that's not a bad thing, that nationalism is not anti-Christian, right? But here's the question though. What do you mean by, what's the procedure for making something Christian, right? So when these people say Christian nationalism, what they're talking about is codifying laws that they
Hold
think
on.
represent,
That question is
you know,
so dope. You have to say that
yeah,
question again. What's the procedure for making
yeah,
something biblical?
yeah. What makes something Christian? Like
Yo,
what makes you a Christian, right? What makes something Christian? So when you say Christian nation, what makes the nation Christian? And so the Christian nationalism is thinking we need to change laws to reflect what God's will is. So you're saying to make a nation Christian, the laws must be changed, right? So you're making Christianity about laws. Here's the problem.
good luck with that.
Moses, Paul, Jesus, they would all disagree with that.
Mm.
What makes something Christian is faith in Jesus, right?
That's right. That's right.
And then, so if you're going to make a Christian nation, then you have to do what Jesus said: go into the nation and preach the gospel.
Make
The
disciples. Yeah.
law, the law will never make anyone a Christian. So even if you abolish abortion and you get rid of every law that you think, it doesn't make people Christian, because the law doesn't change hearts. So
You're saying something.
all these Christian nationalists that are thinking we need to make code go after these laws, and you're questioning if people are actually genuinely converted if they don't agree with you that the law you've reduced Christianity back to the thing that Jesus came to redeem it from.
Oh, ye foolish Americans or foolish Christians.
100%. Amerilations, right? You
Amerilations.
you
Yes.
foolish Amerilations, right? You Amerilations.
Amerilations.
That's it. Like you've made Christianity equivalent to laws, changing laws. And
Mm.
that is not what the gospel is about.
Come on.
If you get rid of every evil law, people's hearts will not be changed. So
That's a
the
fact.
question you have to ask is, does God want us to just change laws and not people's hearts?
Mm.
So here's the question that I asked on the video I made a couple of days ago. I asked this to everyone who thinks that Christian nationalism is not anti-biblical, which on one level it's not necessarily. But here's the question that I would ask. If you want to make a Christian nation, when's the last time you shared the gospel with people in your neighborhood?
Good
Do
question.
your neighbors even know you're a Christian? Do you share the gospel when you're at the grocery store? Or do you think I voted for conservatives and they're going to vote down laws? That doesn't make anyone Christian. That's the opposite of what the New Testament is telling us about law. And now, lastly, if the law of Moses, the direct, no politics, no nothing, just straight, God wrote this on these two tablets, and I'm telling you what God said. If the law of God, without any political or cultural infiltration, was incapable of saving people, then what audacity do you have to think that a nation is Christian by the changing of some laws?
And the key point there is it was incapable because of flesh.
Flesh.
So, I mean, if
Incapable.
the law of God is incapable because of the flesh of man, which means that we are incapable of fulfilling the law because of our own
100%.
flesh, how much, I mean, what, the Constitution? What, I mean, what document you going to put out there that we can somehow fulfill and hold to a T without, being wicked while we do so? You know what I'm saying? Like, what document is there? That's why the gospel is so precious to us as Christians, is
Right.
because we could never have fulfilled the law, but Christ fulfilled it on our behalf. And we function in that reality. And that's why we can look at, and this is the big deal for me, per se, when it comes to looking at someone like Dahmer and salvation. I had someone ask me earlier today, I can't put two and two together with him. Like, how can he profess Christ? Like, the way he lived, the things he did, like, it couldn't be sincere. And I'm thinking, you're right. It can't be sincere. There's no way in and of himself he could ever make a sincere decision to serve and follow and love Christ without Christ giving him a new heart.
100%.
He would have had to have given him a new heart. And as Christians, we rejoice at that occurring, regardless who the recipient is. We rejoice because it reminds us of what has been done for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, we rejoice at salvation. I mean, if the angels in heaven rejoice and clapped over the salvation of Dahmer,
One people, that's crazy.
if they clapped and rejoiced over his salvation, I say if because we don't know his heart. We can't ultimately say whether or not he was saved. We can only go by his profession of faith and those who can testify to his profession of faith and the fruit. So that's all we have to go by. So if they celebrated in heaven over Dahmer, how dare you not celebrate?
100%. And I think the connection for us between the two is the observation that it seems like a lot of American evangelicalism has been reduced to a couple laws and some slogans, and just really a lack of imago Dei. It's just imago Dei violations all day.
Right.
Like, I know Christians who are good believers, solid, but who genuinely think that I need to mock the people. Like, when you think about like the Good Samaritan story in Luke 9, when Jesus says, "Hey, go through Samaria, right? And tell them I want to come through there." And the Samaritans are like, "Nah, fam, you ain't coming through here to get to Israel."
Right.
So the disciples come back and be like, "Lord, should we call down fire from heaven?" And
The
Jesus
sons of
rebukes them.
thunder. Yeah.
Right. American evangelicalism in many ways has become Sons of Thunder theology.
Right.
It's let's call down fire from heaven. Let's mock the opposing political party, and let's splice Christian over it. And if someone corrects you for being unloving, well, they're just correcting you that way because they're with our political opposition.
Hmm.
And I think what we're seeing is, and me and Strack been banging this drum, and people are starting to see this now. You're starting to see how wicked this really is. How wicked this is to think that and I've heard people say, "Well, God was sovereign over slavery." So let me say this as well. God is also sovereign over abortion.
It is.
What God is sovereign over abortion. Everyone that happens, God is sovereign over it.
He is.
He's sovereign over it. That's what I'm saying. This type of phraseology, the type of ways people are thinking, it's just like they've lost their way, brother.
Yeah.
Like there's not a this is what I think a lot of believers don't want to go to hell, but they're not living for heaven.
Right.
So your mind isn't on, you don't want to go to hell, so you know enough that I don't want to go to hell, but you don't want to live for heaven, right? So
That's a good point.
you don't want to set your mind on things above. You don't want to do those things. You don't want to expose the deeds of darkness all over the place. You just want to expose the deeds of darkness of the
Somebody else had
political
that.
opposition.
Somebody else had that mentality in the parable. I mean, when the talents were given, the
Mm-hmm.
last one who hid it.
Yeah, yeah, right.
He hid it.
He
Why did he
buried
hide
it.
it? He was in fear because he knew that his master was cruel and took what he didn't earn and all of these ways that he viewed God. I mean, if all you view God is, if the only thing you see when you view God is hell and trying to avoid hell, and you don't treasure him, how are you going to treasure him for eternity? I
100%,
mean,
bro.
you won't. Why would you?
100%.
Why do you want to be with him?
I don't know if this is true, but I remember when I read this, I loved it. There was some theologian that I heard once say, "Death makes no alterations."
Mm.
So you will die and wake up in the same way that you live. So if you didn't want to be around
Oof.
God's people when you died, you ain't going to want to be around them when you wake up in eternity.
Oh, yo, that joint hurts. That's 118. I'm marking that down
Mm-hmm.
because that's got to be a
Mm-hmm.
you can't. You know what I'm saying?
It is that. And so that's the concern that Strike and I have. When we talk about these things, it's the same drum we're beating, because I think that a lot of what's happened and a lot of our influences, a lot of what we're talking about is just a gospel that's rooted in, we call theological, in the political, advantageous political circumstances that codify laws. And law will never make anyone Christian.
Hmm.
It may make you feel better about the country you live in, but it will not make anyone Christian. And if 2 Corinthians 11 is true, that Satan appears as an angel of light, right? If that's true, then Satan doesn't have a problem with morality.
Hmm.
Satan loves morality, just not morality that's motivated by the Messiah.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a problem with morality. He doesn't.
Nah, I mean, he used morality to cause the fall. He said,
100%.
you'll know good and evil.
Yeah.
You'll know
Uh-huh.
morality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's an angel of light. So again, this is what we see happening. So with Jeffrey Dahmer, the connection, circling back to that, is that Kanye West professed to be a Christian. I've heard Candace Owens professes to be a Christian. I don't know their hearts at all, so I'm not going to comment on the validity of it. But you judge a tree by the fruit that it bears.
Hmm.
I don't know Candace Owens privately, but publicly, she is a very vindictive, self-righteous, sinfully judgmental person. And I think as as people who are image bearers, we try to avoid image bearer, violations, right? We try to avoid those as best as possible. We're not going to do them perfectly. I know I've been with the smoke plenty of times. I get
I
it.
mean, we're told not to slander. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
we're not supposed to lie. Like, come on.
yeah. And we're not supposed to be critiquing the world.
Right.
Paul said, "Judge the purge the evil." That doesn't mean don't vote, don't stand up. That's not what we mean at all.
Right.
And I,
Doesn't
and, I,
mean
and
you.
the
It
fact
doesn't
that
mean don't use discernment.
no, we need discernment, right?
Right. Right.
And we want it as well done on earth as it is in heaven. But I think we're at a point where you got people who are professing to be Christians that are leading the way in acting like non-Christians,
Hmm.
and many Christians are okay with that because of either political or even just because this is what I was going to say earlier, and I lost it, and the Lord brought it back. I think when we talk about, well, how many people to make a nation Christian, you need to make people believe in Jesus, right? To become a Christian, you don't make a nation Christian by changing laws. You
Right.
make a nation Christians by preaching the gospel that changes hearts, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I think we're at a point when you really look at what's happening in the church, and again, I'm not the Lord, I don't know all of it, but so I don't mean every Christian, but what you see is a lack of wanting people to be saved. People don't really want people to be saved anymore.
That
That
ties
thing
in
is
good
gone.
too. That ties in good too. Yeah.
People
At
don't
least
want
it's
people to
not.
be
It's definitely
saved.
not the. It's definitely not the main concern, for sure.
Mm-mm. I don't think it's of concern to many believers these days
Wow.
because you're so quick to call out what non-Christians do, so quick to demonize people, even your own folks.
Hmm.
I mean, I think 1 John 4:20 is going to send a lot of people into judgment. When Jesus said, look, if you do, the word, John said this, if you do not love your brother whom you have seen, then you cannot love God whom you haven't seen.
That's right. Yeah.
And people treat that as, we don't, that's not important anymore. It's like, nah, fam. Matthew 23, all the way. So anyway, all that to say, there's a sense where we don't want people to go to heaven. So when you hear about a Jeffrey Dahmer, you can't fathom that type of grace because you yourself don't have confidence in it.
Mm.
You just can't fathom it. You can't imagine that God would forgive someone like that because you don't understand the grace that you even have. You just can't fathom it.
Or maybe you don't
You
got it.
remember that song called "What If God Was One of Us?"
I hate that
Just
song.
a slob like whatever. You know what's funny? That song is stupid, but you know what? I think that song, in a weird prophetic way, has become how Christians view themselves. We think God is like us, and
Mhm.
the people that irritate us irritate him. So
Yeah.
we wouldn't forgive a Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right.
So we
Right.
can't imagine that he would.
Yeah. I think
That's
we. I
part of the
mean,
problem.
it's interesting as humans. We do that with like our dogs too, like our animals.
Yeah.
We project this, way of thinking on them as if though they're able to think about things the way we do. You know what I'm saying? Or feel
Right,
the way we do. You know what
right,
I'm saying?
right,
We do that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just a reality. I mean, that causes a lot of the emotion that we have over our animals and the relationship
right,
aspects,
right,
is because we project our thoughts onto them. I think
right.
we do the same thing with God. We project our thoughts upon God, even in prayer. We think that because we think this way about something and we know so much about God, he must think that way too because it just makes sense.
100%.
It just fits. That's a major problem because if what that tells me is with that mentality, we're approaching scripture and hoping scripture just affirms what we believe
That's
rather
what it
than
is.
rather than approaching scripture hoping to learn and be taught.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Whew. I think that approaching scripture, hoping, yeah, it just all of that, man, all of it. I just think it's a crazy time, and Strack and I are
For sure.
committed to saying this stuff, and we get it. People are going to disagree. People are going to call us whatever. I don't even care, fam. Like I'm so far, like, oh, I'm in like another place with that stuff. Like I could
Yeah.
care less
I
because
I
like
do want to go ahead. Well, real quick, I just want to say, if you if you are watching this this show with Dahmer,
we've been on that documentary hard, right?
I know, right? Then please do me a favor or do yourself a favor. Go watch that interview where he professes to be a believer, where he's sitting next to his father, and watch it in light of that reality. Like
Yeah,
that interview should affect you. It should hit you to the core. Because just watching someone profess faith, who you look at as a wicked, evil person, but that person is saying Jesus is the creator of the world and of all
yeah,
things, and that Jesus can save even him. Like when you hear that man profess that,
yeah.
it should move you. You know what I'm saying? It
I was
should move you,
affected, bro.
believer.
I
Oh
was
man,
affected by that.
listen,
I was
yeah,
affected.
yeah, man, yes
I was
sir.
affected, and if I was wrong, hey, if it's not true, then you know what though? I'm glad that my heart is sensitive
Amen,
to
amen,
people believing in Jesus,
amen,
and that I celebrate that. So
amen.
even if Kanye's not really a Christian, Jeffrey Dahmer's not, my affection for them and my is a tenderness that I don't want the spirit to take away from me.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
I want, so it's not
It's an
about
affection
proving.
about it's an affection over the Lord's mercy and grace.
Right,
You're so good,
100%.
God. You're so good
Yeah,
that you would even
yeah,
forgive this. You're
yeah. It's
so
crazy.
good, God. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you gotta be rocked by that. I mean, as a
yeah.
believer, like
But I think where a lot of people aren't, bro, is I think if we're being honest, a lot of believers I don't think are confident in God's love for them.
yeah, I mean, they're more in
I
fear.
don't.
Yeah.
I think there's more fear. So when Jesus, well, I just keep saying Jesus because he's the word, right? But when First John says perfect love casts out fear, and that if you are afraid, you haven't been perfected in love,
Mm.
it's not like a harsh criticism. It's a gentle like rebuke, like, hey, like God, like you must believe that, right? You
Right,
have to
right.
believe that God, you're loved and valued by God. Why? Because he sent his son, right?
Amen.
So there's a degree in which I think a lot of us just don't feel that way because we're very feelings oriented, right? So
Right.
I don't feel different. I don't feel like people are like, man, what's it like to feel like be a pastor? It's like I don't feel like a pastor. I wake up, I got the
You don't
same.
want to feel like a pastor.
Yeah, I don't want to feel like that. That's how the Pharisees felt. I don't want to feel like that.
Right.
But like there's a sense where we don't have a lot of confidence in our relationship with the Lord. So we just don't, we can't understand grace in that way.
Because we too busy just looking at ourselves.
Well, and also, and again, I think there is a sort of like, I was joking with the, what if God was one of us, but there is a sort of reverse incarnational ideology that we
Mm.
have where we, instead of Jesus becoming like us, we think he became like us in all the bad ways.
Hmm.
And so that he wouldn't forgive these people. That's why we're so quick to go after and demonize people. Look, man, people need Jesus. They don't need demonization.
Right.
Like Second Timothy 2:22 through 26 is clear. But verse 26, he's clearly like, look, I'm going to read this because I quote stuff a lot. And sometimes it's just good when you read the
For
word, right?
sure.
So
For sure.
this is what the word, this is what it says. It says this. It said, and the Lord's servant, verse 24, must not be quarrelsome, but kind to everyone,
Hmm.
able to teach, patiently enduring evil.
Hmm.
Patiently enduring evil, right? Correcting his opponents with gentleness. God may perhaps grant them repentance, leading to a knowledge of the truth, and they may come to their senses and escape the snare of the devil after being captured by him to do his will.
And he talking about evil there. Evil,
Yeah,
he said.
evil. It says evil. Evil. He said they've been taken. So people, non-Christians, have been taken captive by the devil to do his will.
Hmm.
And so we're supposed to say, "Hey, I got a word. I got truth. Let me." And now we just be like, "Man, who did you vote for?
Right.
Are you woke, or are you? We just evaluate people
Or
not based on
or
do
just
they need Jesus?
are you worse than me? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Like that's just are your sins more public than mine?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's what it is. We evaluate people based on, not do they need Jesus or not, but like who they, what do they do, who do they vote for,
Luke
what do they
18.
support, what are they against. It's just it's fascinating. It's fascinating how we all have that reality. And so again, and I love this, Richard. This is good word right here. It's like many of us Christians have the 100% Jonah attitude, offended at God that he would save wicked people because we
Right.
want God to not save them. This
Right.
is what's happened. I think this is the real pandemic among the church. I think the spirit of the age, the enemy has hardened the hearts of believers from being loving to being critical, being from wanting to share faith to wanting to accuse people, and that's where we're at.
That's so
And
wild
so,
because it's almost like deliberately making a choice to want to judge people versus love people.
100%.
Like
But
it's
that's
just
easier,
deliberately.
right?
Yeah, it is. It is
Well, but
totally.
again, because listen, the motive for loving other people, we typically view love as an emotion, right?
Right.
So we love people who love us and that we have relationship with. But Scripture says, look, even unbelievers do that.
Mm-hmm.
The motive for loving people, the reason, how do you love your neighbor as yourself, right?
Hmm.
Well, you don't know everyone. So you can't love people because you put some time in with them. The motive for loving people is not how you feel about them or how they
Mm-hmm.
feel about you. The
That's right.
motive for loving people is how God feels about you.
That's right. That's right.
What God, so I can love anyone because God loves me. I'm motivated by that. I don't even have to know you, fam.
Right.
I don't know you. I can't put in time and build a rapport with you to get to the point where you would be like strapped to me. That's a
Mm-hmm.
little bro. Like I don't have the capacity, but I can love you because I'm motivated not by the work we put in together and how much I know you. I'm motivated by God saying He loves me. He's my
Right.
Father,
Right.
and that's the motivation.
Yeah.
That's
I
why
mean,
you
we
can
we
love
love
people.
because he first loved
He
us.
loved 100%.
Yeah.
That's what's gone. That is gone from modern day. Not every Christian, obviously, but that's gone in large swaths of the American evangelical church. We are the Amerilations in many
Yeah. I
ways.
mean, I mean, obviously, this opens up all kinds of trails that we can go down, but I think one of the
Yeah,
major aspects that causes this type of mentality is the lack of relationship, the lack of fellowship, that we have. And coming out of the situation with COVID, we see it. We see the
yeah,
evidence of that hitting really
yeah,
hard. I mean, when you don't fellowship with people, when you're not building with the body of Christ, you're not reminded, you're not partaking in Christ as you should be. That's the reality. So you will be
yeah. Well said.
majorly affected by that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, brother. Well, there's a lot of trails we could go on, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
hold off
Yes.
because I want to make sure that we back now. We apologize, man, for missing a couple of weeks. This is season
Yes.
5 though. We here, we back season 5. We in it every Thursday night, give or take. Sometimes things happen. Um, we'll do that. We'll
Yeah.
be able to share truth and talk to y'all. Just kick it, man. We appreciate many of you watching this live stream. We appreciate the people who may watch it later. Please
Yeah.
share this. If you like what we said here, like and subscribe to the channel. And if you could leave us comments. There's a lot of comments in the live, but leave us comments in the actual video. We feel like we're saying something that could be beneficial to more than just those of you who are watching now. Thank you for watching on Facebook and on YouTube. And if you're listening to the audio on podcast, thank you. We appreciate your support.
Yes.
There's some links in the description. We'd love to have you continue to support us. If you want, follow us on Twitter here. I'm Kirk Kennedy, his hype man. I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of tired. I'm kind of like, I've been just not even tripping off Twitter these days. I actually enjoy doing videos and stuff more because I feel like there's more of a community here.
For sure.
Now, I don't know if I just follow the wrong people. I don't follow many people on Twitter, but it's just a dumpster fire. I just don't care about it. So you see AbnersBrush.com, you see that picture in the back, you may not be an Eagles fan, but that picture could be your family or something
Yeah.
more meaningful than that picture.
Or it
Go to
could be, you like
AbnersBrush.com.
you Dallas Cowboys. Whatever. I paint
Yeah,
anybody. I don't discriminate.
yeah,
Real rap.
right,
Well, let
right.
me not say that, but
Yeah, right.
And yo,
You know what I'm saying?
and in case y'all didn't know, we do a little something called rapping. We make
Yeah,
pretty dope music. You know what I'm saying? And I
yeah.
did just drop a single last Friday with the brother apologist Expressions. It's available everywhere. Go get that joint and be on the lookout for what we're doing next. Cause we doing some work, man. We putting
There'll be
in
a link in the description.
rhetoric. Word.
Yeah, and having said that, so last year I put out this album, Serial Killer Smiling Pictures. It's an album that I wanted to kind of explore what the fascination is with serial killers. Like,
I thought
why
you,
are
I
we
thought you was
drawn
about
to
to
them?
cuss. I'm mad childish right now. What the?
After all that good word we just said, I'm getting ready to drop an F bomb on this joint,
Yeah,
man.
I'm terrible, man.
After all that
That's
good
I'm
word.
terrible, man. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's what keeps it
So, like,
interesting.
yeah, but I did this album because I wanted to explore the fascination. And so I had a brother, somebody who's a faithful watcher of the show. He said, my buddy Brandon, he was like, "Hey, bro, do you realize that every time you drop an album," he said, someone else said, I thought he was about to cuss too.
Word, I'm not. I'm
man,
not alone.
man, what y'all think of me, fam? You ain't heard me cuss ever, and now you just judging me. But anyway, this album is streaming everywhere. Go pick this up. I think it'll give you some context to, and I just think it's wild. This dude was like, bro, every time you drop an album, that's where the culture shifts to. And I said, you know what, you're right. So this album is on iTunes, Spotify,
And it's
anywhere
a
you get
banger.
albums. Yeah, Serial Killer Smiling Pictures, Kirk Kennedy. Go pick this up and then let me know what you think of it. I would love to get your thoughts on it. It's a good album, and it will walk you through how did we get to this point where we love fascinated by serial killers. What's going on behind the scenes,
Very
underneath?
timely.
It's a,
Very timely.
isn't that funny, bro? I
Yeah,
dropped that joint last year, and then almost a year later, Jeffrey Dahmer is like the number one
it's a gift,
show
brother.
on
It's a
Netflix.
gift. It's a
The
gift.
Lord just be see. So let me see what happens when we say stuff on the show. I'm telling you, it's from the Lord. We be
Listen.
hip. No, it was Mama. Man, we appreciate y'all, man. Thanks so much for
Yes.
watching Cross Examine. I'll have a video or two in the next day or so talking about something unrelated, but we'll be back here next Thursday night. Strack the Wolverine, Kirk Kennedy. We love doing this. We thank you for y'all. Like and subscribe to the channel. Please consider supporting us on the different websites and the different music and ventures. We would love that. Please leave comments in the actual video once it posts. We would love to be able to interact, and that will also help the algorithm kind of push the video around as it has some momentum. Thank you. Appreciate y'all so much. Thank you for the kind words that you guys share with me. Appreciate
Yes.
you. Go back, listen to this again. Share this video with people. And if you're listening to the audio, share the podcast. We'd appreciate it. Having said all that, I'm Kirk Kennedy. He's Strack the Wolverine.
Come
And
on
we are
already.
out of here, y'all. Grace and peace.
Peace.